Well, Canada, you have a brand new prime minister. No, well, you necessarily did not have a chance to have a say in that, unless you were a Liberal Party member. But Mark Carney is now Canada's prime minister. And with all of that, when will we have an election? What's going to happen next? What does it mean for tariffs? Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilley and Warren Kinsella. And Brian, this is just a fact. Canadians broadly, as the electorate, did not have an opportunity to have a say in who Canada's next prime minister is. It was the 100,000 plus people that joined the Liberal Party to vote for him.
Yeah.
And then before the people, the nerds come after me and say, "Oh, Canada doesn't directly elect their prime minister." I know that. We all know that the leader of the party, who has the majority in the House, gets to be the next prime minister. But here we are, Brian, with all that confusion and all of that nuance. Mark Carney has now taken the helm of this country at a time when we are in economic peril.
Yes, and he needs a mandate for that very reason, which is why we need to have an election soon, whether it is Mark Carney as prime minister, we change governments and parties and it becomes Pierre Poilievre. We need a prime minister with a mandate, not someone who was selected in an online process by 131,000 registered liberals. You can't go down to Washington and negotiate with any real sense of being chosen by the people when that's the situation. So, like everything else, though, when the election will be is kind of fluid, just like the polls are fluid, just like the tariffs are fluid. This is fluid. But I've heard everything from an election call on March 16th with voting day just after Easter on April 22nd. I know elections are supposed to be Mondays, but Easter Monday is a stat holiday federally, so that would put it to the 22nd. But also hearing the Liberals don't have enough candidates nominated. The Conservatives are well over 280. The NDP tells me that they're absolutely going to have 343. That's the new number for this election, that they will have all of them nominated, but the Liberals still below 200. That number will be climbing over the coming days, but
Mhm.
they're not quite ready. So they may need another week or so. That could mean that we go until March 23rd, the day before the House is to come back, before the election call. And then it would be April 28th or May 5th for voting day. Effectively, we wouldn't have a functional federal government
No.
until the very last week of May or the beginning of June when Parliament would come back, have to pass a budget, all of that.
Well, we could argue, Warren, we haven't had a properly functioning federal government in some time, but I just want to go back sort of to the leadership race in of itself. Um, Mark Carney, who had never run for anything before, of course, he does not have a seat in the House of Commons. He is now Canada's prime minister. But throughout the course of the leadership race, being prime minister, you need to be a bit battle tested. You need to be hardened a bit, particularly when you're going into different types of negotiations. I mean, a glove was not laid on him during the entire span, Warren, of the leadership race. In fact, I would argue that his campaign team really bubble wrapped him, wouldn't let him do a lot of media, and maybe there's good reason why. I wonder what from your perspective as he's now prime minister, does any of that matter?
It does matter. Being ready matters, and having experience matters. And we saw that in the two liberal leadership debates that Mark Carney participated in, both in French and in English, by popular consensus. He lost both debates.
Mhm.
Like he was plodding and kind of dull. However, it seems to me it's this weird situation where the country seems to have taken that into consideration and said, and I've written about this in our paper, that's kind of what we want, is somebody who's plodding and dull and calm and like a banker. And it's extraordinary because I've never seen a situation like this before. Usually, I work for Chrétien and other politicians. Passion is important, and speaking from your heart and letting people have it. And this guy just doesn't have that skill set. So what does that mean for the election campaign? Well, he's going to continue to be the person he is. The thing that I'm going to be looking for is what Pierre Poilievre and Yves-Francois Blanchet of the Bloc Québécois do with that. Those are two very professional politicians. They've got a lot of skills. They've got a lot of passion. I think they're going to make mincemeat out of him in the debate. But again, as things stand now, even with the country knowing that Carney is kind of dull, he's still got momentum, and that big conservative lead has vanished.
Well, which we expected it to, Brian. I mean, none of us certainly knew that that was going to be quite the scenario that it is, but we could see that it wasn't going to be a 20-point lead that the Conservatives have sustained. Now, that said, as you mentioned, the polls are fluid. Everything is in flux, though the Conservatives have maintained a lead, but those could quickly evaporate. But the reality is, Canadians want an election. We've wanted an election for a very, very long time. So let's game out some scenarios. I know you love to do this.
Yeah.
And that is, we just saw in the last day the NDP come out with their own, shall we say, attack ad on Mark Carney, calling him a liar about the Brookfield stuff, misleading the public about this. What are his assets? All of that. So the NDP is out with their version of a hard-hitting ad against Carney. So that could spell something, in terms of election readiness. The Conservatives have already been at it with their ads, but is the scenario still possible where a quote unquote deal could be made with the NDP to keep this going, or is that completely done?
Spoken to people in Jagmeet Singh's office, and they say no.
Okay.
That if Carney came back to the House on March 24th and said, look, we want to pass some supports for workers, maybe some EI reform, some financial packages to help companies and workers affected by tariffs, they would support that very short term, and that would be it. And then they would be off to an election. But nobody expects, not the NDP, not the Conservatives, and no Liberal I'm talking to, expects Mark Carney to go before the House of Commons and face the House. They're hoping to ride this momentum and make him Prime Minister with a mandate from the people, and it could work. Voting is not an intellectual thing; it is an emotional thing. Donald Trump has the whole country riled up in all kinds of different ways. You talk about fluid polls. 2 weeks ago, Leger had the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, ahead of the Conservatives by 2. I believe it was 2. And then a week later, they said, no, Mark Carney-led Liberals would still be trailing the Conservatives. It would be 41% for the Conservatives and 33% for the Carney Liberals. Now, Leger is out with them tied. This is the most accurate polling firm in the last couple of elections, and Postmedia's polling firm. So it is back and forth. But you've also got Innovative saying, no, it's a 10-point lead still. Others saying Liberals well ahead. We don't know. The betting markets, and you can bet on Canadian politics now in your handy-dandy sports app that's on your phone. Betting markets still have the Conservatives as the favorites to win the election, to win the most seats, to win a majority. I don't know. You know what I'm going to say, though. Voters are fickle. Polls can change. Campaigns matter. That NDP ad, over 1 million people have seen it on YouTube. I don't even know if it's airing on networks or if it's being played in or placed with on Facebook or other social media platforms for people to see it. But more than 1 million on YouTube. The NDP normally doesn't resonate with these things. They don't do very well. This is a slick, well-produced ad that could end up hurting Carney. And the Conservatives, they told me that they have the biggest ad buy in Canadian political history attacking Carney right now. It's across all channels. You can see it on TV. If you're playing Xbox, you're going to see it. If you are on social media, if you're on our Toronto Sun website, you're going to see it everywhere. So those things will sink in. The debates will sink in. The campaigns will sink in. Anyone trying to predict what's going to happen now and say biggest Conservative majority ever, or the Liberals are going to take it in a landslide, this is Carney's time. Anybody saying that right now, they're trying to sell you a bill of goods.
Warren, last word to you. I want to sort of touch on again this whole idea of Carney not being tested and not necessarily going to be able to, you know, step into that ring, so to speak, with a Polyev or a Blanchette, who are very well versed in speaking in French and English, of course, and that to and fro of political discourse. That's not been Carney's thing, and no one begrudges him that. He's been in the world of banking and finance. He hasn't done this. But those things matter, and I'm going to point to even something as recent as an event that he went to right before he was sworn in, to go speak with steelworkers, and his staff told the pool cameras, turn off your microphones. No, we're not going to follow him here. No, he's not taking any questions. No questions seems to be the Carney way right now. That's not a good opening for Canadians to get to know who, not only the current him as prime minister, but the guy who wants to get the mandate.
Yeah, but it worked for them, didn't it? Like he got 90% of the vote.
Right.
And like, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
86. It was only
Okay,
86.
okay,
Don't
whatever,
check.
whatever, whatever. He kicked ass, right? And I know he's a political novice. I've been the one who's been pointing it out since
Mhm.
his name first appeared as an idea, saying that he was Michael Ignatieff with a pocket calculator. Well, he kicked ass,
Mhm.
and he's exceeding expectation at every step of the way. And the Conservative Party made two big mistakes. They did not have a plan B in case the Trudeau left. Too many of them had convinced themselves, I'm not going to name names, that he was going to stay, right? And Trudeau did not stay. And the second big problem, they may have a big ad buy right now, but it's too late, right? We're going to be into a writ and everybody's going to be subject to the same spending rules. They should have been defining this guy before he could define himself, well before now. And they didn't do that. And the evidence of that is seen in the polling, where a guy who has no political experience, who nobody knows anything about, is competitive to be the elected Prime Minister
Mhm.
of Canada. So I think the Conservatives made two big mistakes: underestimating the Liberal Party, so, figuring that, that they're gone, and also that Trudeau was going to stick around. And those may be mistakes they regret. Because the problem here, guys, is, yeah, for sure, if you look at the seat modeling based on Leger, based on IRG, whomever, they all show that the Conservative Party still has an excellent shot at either a majority or minority. But unlike the Liberal Party, if the Conservatives get a minority, Pierre Poilievre is going to be gone in 2 weeks. The opposition parties are going to get together and drive him out of power. That is not the case for Mark Carney. If Mark Carney can figure out some way to have a minority, even by one seat, he will be able to survive. That is not the case for Pierre Poilievre.
Well, it certainly has made Canadian politics interesting and something to watch. Will we be in an election in a few weeks' time? We'll soon find out. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the torontosun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.